Welcome, chosen ones. When you walk in truth, you don't just exist, you disrupt, awaken, and transform. Chosen ones, the world feels your presence even before you speak. You're not just another person in the room, you're a force that challenges the ordinary. You're the one who sees through the games, the lies, and the facades, and because of that, people can't help but feel unsettled around you. It's not your fault. It's your power. You didn't choose to be different. It was ingrained in your soul. You carry a wisdom that others struggle to understand, and an authenticity that makes their insecurities rise to the surface. They fear you because you remind them of what they've abandoned, their potential, their dreams, their truth. This is your sign. You are not too much, and you are not a mistake. You were made to disrupt mediocrity and challenge the status quo. But being chosen is not easy. It's a responsibility. So step into your purpose, own your truth, and embrace the discomfort you bring. This video will show you 13 reasons why they are scared of you and why your presence is so powerful and what it means to truly be chosen. Number 1. You're unbothered by their opinions and it drives them crazy. There's something undeniably powerful about someone who is completely unbothered by the opinions of others. Chosen ones have mastered this art, and it drives people absolutely crazy. It's not arrogance or ignorance. It's a deep understanding that other people's judgments are not your truth. You know who you are, and that certainty creates a calm confidence that others can't ignore. Most people are trapped in a constant cycle of seeking approval. They bend, adjust, and mold themselves just to fit into someone else's idea of acceptable. But you don't play that game. You've realized that living for validation is a form of self-betrayal, and so you walk your path unapologetically. This kind of freedom makes people uncomfortable because it reminds them of their own chains. Your indifference to their opinions forces them to confront their need for external validation. It makes them question their significance because your refusal to care takes away the power they think they have. The things they use to control others, criticism, gossip, judgment, bounce off you like they're meaningless, which only frustrates them more. They label you as cold or arrogant because they can't fathom someone who genuinely doesn't care about their approval. But deep down, they're fascinated. They wish they could have the same level of inner strength, the same self-assuredness that you possess. By staying true to yourself, you silently challenge everyone around you to do the same. You don't waste your energy explaining, defending, or adjusting who you are. And in a world desperate for attention and validation, that makes you unstoppable. Number 2, you operate on a frequency they can't tune into. When you're a chosen one, your mind operates on a level that many people can't grasp. Your thoughts, ideas, and energy are aligned with a deeper truth, a higher plane of understanding that goes beyond surface-level thinking. This isn't something you force. It's simply the way you're wired. But because of this, you're often misunderstood. People don't know how to process the way you think or why you move the way you do. To them, your vision feels too big, too bold, or too different. And instead of trying to rise to your level, many choose to resent or dismiss you. It's easier for them to ridicule what they don't understand than to confront their own limitations. They label you as too much or out of touch because your ideas challenge the boundaries of their comfort zones. You're not afraid to think differently, to dream bigger, or to question what everyone else accepts as truth. This makes you a disruptor, a force that shakes up the status quo, and that's not something everyone can handle. But here's the thing. Their inability to tune into your frequency is not your burden to carry. You're not here to shrink yourself to make others comfortable. You're here to break barriers, to introduce new ways of thinking, and to bring light to places where others are afraid to look. The resentment or dismissal you face isn't a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their fear. They see in you what they can't see in themselves, a connection to something greater, something infinite. And while they might not understand you now, your frequency will eventually ripple through their world, leaving an undeniable impact. Stay in tune with yourself and keep moving forward. You're exactly where you're meant to be. Number 3, you don't need to prove yourself, and it exposes their desperation. In a world obsessed with appearances and external validation, there's nothing more unsettling than someone who doesn't feel the need to prove themselves. Chosen ones walk through life with a quiet confidence that comes from knowing their worth isn't tied to the opinions of others. You don't chase approval, brag about your achievements, or seek acknowledgement to feel whole. You simply exist in your truth, and that in itself is enough. This unshakable self-assurance throws others off balance. They're used to people clamoring for attention, bending over backward to be noticed, or inflating their worth to impress. But when they encounter someone like you, someone who is at peace with themselves, it forces them to confront the emptiness of their own pursuits. While they scramble for clout, social status, or superficial praise, you stand unbothered, and that contrast is glaring. Your refusal to play their game exposes their desperation. Their need to be seen, validated, and admired becomes painfully obvious when placed next to your quiet certainty. They might try to tear you down, mock you, or diminish your value, but deep down, they're envious. They crave the freedom you embody, the ability to live authentically without the constant need for approval. Your strength lies in knowing that proving yourself is unnecessary because your value is self-evident. You let your actions speak, your energy radiate, and your presence do the talking. While they exhaust themselves chasing fleeting validation, you continue to thrive in the truth of who you are. And that truth, it's untouchable. Number 4, your presence demands respect without asking for it. There's something about you that people can't ignore, even if they try. It's not just the way you speak or carry yourself, it's the undeniable energy that follows you wherever you go. Chosen ones have a presence that commands respect without ever needing to ask for it. It's not about arrogance or intimidation. It's about the quiet, unshakable power you exude simply by being authentic. People instinctively feel the weight of who you are. They sense your strength, your clarity, and the depth of your character, often before you've even said a word. Some are drawn to it, inspired by the way you hold yourself. Others feel threatened because your presence reminds them of their own insecurities and shortcomings. Regardless of how they feel, one thing is certain: they cannot dismiss you. You don't demand attention, but you receive it. You don't seek authority, but people naturally defer to you. This isn't something that can be taught or faked. It's the result of living in alignment with your purpose and knowing your worth. You carry a calm confidence that speaks louder than words, and it unsettles those who rely on loudness or dominance to feel powerful. Even those who dislike you are forced to acknowledge your presence. They might not agree with you or even understand you, but they know you're not someone to be overlooked. This isn't about forcing people to respect you. It's about being so grounded in your truth that respect becomes inevitable. The power you carry doesn't come from ego. It comes from authenticity. And in a world full of noise and pretense, that kind of presence is rare. You don't need to ask for respect because it's already written in the way you walk, speak, and exist. Number 4, you're a walking catalyst for change. Being a chosen one means you don't just walk into a room. You shift its entire energy. You're not just a presence, you're a force. Wherever you go, things begin to move, change, and evolve, whether people are ready for it or not. It's not something you plan or consciously try to do, it's simply who you are. Your energy refuses to let things stay stagnant. You push people, systems, and situations out of their comfort zones, often without saying a word. Some people grow because of you. They see your strength, your clarity, and your refusal to settle, and it inspires them to step up. You become the spark that ignites their own transformation, helping them realize that they too can break free from mediocrity. For these people, your presence is a gift, an unspoken challenge to become better, to think bigger, to be bolder. But not everyone responds this way. For others, your presence feels like pressure to confront their flaws, face their fears, and acknowledge the ways they've been holding themselves back. Instead of rising to meet the challenge, they resist. They lash out, try to discredit you, or distance themselves altogether. Staying the same feels safer to them, but your presence makes it impossible to ignore how stagnant they've become. Either way, you alter lives. You are a walking catalyst for change, not because you demand it, but because your authenticity naturally disrupts anything that isn't real or aligned. You force people to choose, evolve, or remain stuck, and that kind of power is rare and unstoppable. Whether they grow with you or collapse under the weight of their own resistance, one thing is clear. No one stays the same after encountering you. Number 5. You're the proof that the system is broken. You are living proof that the system is a lie. While most people blindly follow societal rules, believing that conformity, obedience, and staying in line are the only paths to success, you exist as undeniable evidence to the contrary. You don't play by their rules, yet you thrive. You don't seek validation from broken systems, yet you succeed. And that, to those who've built their entire lives around these structures, feels like a slap in the face. Your very existence exposes the cracks in their carefully constructed beliefs. They've spent years convincing themselves that following the script, chasing titles, wealth, or approval, is the only way to matter. But then you walk in, breaking every unspoken rule, and prove them wrong simply by being yourself. It's not just that you refuse to conform, it's that your refusal works. You thrive without compromising your authenticity, and that shakes them to their core. It's easier for them to dismiss you than to face the truth you represent. If they acknowledge you, they'd have to confront the uncomfortable reality that they've been living a lie. They'd have to admit that the system they cling to is not designed for freedom, growth, or individuality, but for control. And nothing terrifies them more than realizing they've been willingly trapped. You don't need to preach or argue. Your life is the loudest statement. Every step you take outside their rules, every success you achieve without their approval, is a direct challenge to the foundation they stand on. You're not just thriving, you're rewriting what's possible. And while they may resist, ridicule, or resent you, deep down they know the truth. You are the proof that the system is broken, and there's no going back. Number 6. You radiate confidence that intimidates fragile egos. Confidence like yours isn't loud or boastful. It's rooted in truth. You don't need to overcompensate or seek validation because your belief in yourself is unshakable. It's not arrogance. It's simply the result of knowing who you are, what you stand for, and what you're capable of. This quiet, authentic confidence doesn't just stand out, it unsettles people, especially those whose self-worth depends on external factors. Insecure people operate behind carefully crafted facades. Their egos are built on fragile foundations of approval, status, and appearances. When they encounter someone like you, someone who doesn't need their validation, it feels like a threat. Your confidence highlights everything they lack: their self-doubt, their dependence on others, and the hollowness of the personas they cling to. It's not something you intend to do, but it happens nonetheless. They might try to label you as arrogant or dismissive, but this is just their way of projecting their insecurities onto you. Deep down, they're uncomfortable because your presence exposes the cracks in their false confidence. It forces them to confront a truth they've been avoiding. Real confidence comes from within, and no amount of external validation can replace it. Your strength isn't in pretending to be perfect, it's in accepting yourself fully, flaws and all. That's what makes your self-belief so powerful and so intimidating. You don't need to prove anything to anyone, and that kind of freedom is rare. While others scramble to maintain their image, you simply live your truth, and that alone is enough to shake fragile egos to their core. Number 7. You see through them instantly, and it terrifies them. There's no hiding from you. As a chosen one, your intuition cuts through people like a blade, exposing what they try so hard to conceal. You don't just hear their words, you feel the truth behind them. Their motives, fears, insecurities, and desires are laid bare before you, often before they even realize it themselves. This isn't something you force, it's a gift you carry, one that leaves people feeling both seen and exposed. This ability terrifies them. Most people spend their lives constructing walls to hide who they truly are, even from themselves. They wear masks, play roles, and build facades to protect their vulnerabilities. But when they meet you, those walls crumble in an instant. You don't even need to say much. Your presence alone feels like a mirror, reflecting back all the truths they'd rather keep hidden. They fear your ability to see them because it strips away their control. Suddenly, they're vulnerable, and vulnerability feels like a threat. They worry about what you might do with this power. Will you call them out? Will you use it against them? The reality is you don't have to. The very fact that you know is enough to unsettle them. But this isn't about manipulation or judgment. Your gift isn't meant to harm. It's meant to bring clarity. However, not everyone is ready for that level of honesty, especially when it comes from someone who can see through the lies they've told themselves. For those who can't handle it, your presence feels invasive, even dangerous. But for those willing to confront their truth, you're a rare force of change. Either way, they'll never forget you, because being seen, truly seen, is something most people fear and crave all at once. Number 8. You don't play by their rules and it breaks their system. You don't fit into their neatly constructed boxes, and that's exactly what makes you so powerful. Chosen ones reject the rules that society tries to impose on them. You don't follow the status quo, conform to expectations, or play by the arbitrary standards set by others. Whether it's the rigid hierarchies of workplaces, the social norms that dictate behavior, or the herd mentality that demands conformity, you refuse to be part of it, and that drives people who depend on these structures absolutely crazy. Your ability to carve your own path exposes the fragility of their system. When you step outside their boundaries, you force them to question everything they've built their lives around. Their power dynamics, those invisible rules that keep people in their place, become irrelevant in the face of your independence. You don't need to play the game for the game to work for you. And that's a direct threat to everything they believe in. Most people don't have the courage to break free from the expectations that bind them. They fear what would happen if they stopped trying to fit in, so they stay locked in their roles, playing the parts they've been assigned. But you've already stepped beyond that. You're living proof that success doesn't have to look the way they expect it to. Your refusal to conform forces them to reckon with their own fears and limitations. They can't handle the fact that you don't need their validation, their rules, or their approval. You've become a walking disruption to everything they've accepted as normal, and they have no idea how to respond. You're not just breaking the rules, you're rewriting them. Number 9. Your energy is a magnet, but it's not always comforting. Your energy has an undeniable pull, like a magnet that draws people in, but it's not always the comforting kind. There's something about you that people can't resist. They feel compelled to be near you, to seek your attention, or to be in your presence. But once they get close, they quickly realize that your energy doesn't allow them to remain complacent. Your intensity forces them to look at themselves in ways they might not be ready for. For some, this is a gift. It's a wake-up call. Your presence forces them to confront their own truths, to shed the masks they've been wearing, and to strive for something higher. You challenge them to step into their full potential, and though it may be uncomfortable at first, they walk away better for it. They know that being around you has made them grow, and they leave your presence with a deeper sense of self-awareness. But for others, your energy feels like punishment. They're not ready to face the truths you bring to the surface, so they resist, recoil, or retreat. You expose their insecurities, their fears, and their limitations in a way that no one else can, and that can be unsettling. They feel vulnerable, naked, and unprepared to change, so they may dismiss you, criticize you, or even resent you for forcing them to confront parts of themselves they'd rather keep hidden. But that's the power of your energy. It doesn't allow anyone to stay the same. Whether they rise to the challenge or falter under its weight, one thing is clear. They're never the same after encountering you. Number 10. You are a living reminder of the dreams they gave up on. You are a living, breathing reminder of everything they once dreamed of but let go. Your success, your resilience, and your courage shine a harsh light on the compromises they've made and the excuses they've clung to for years. Every step you take forward, Every accomplishment you achieve reminds them of the person they could have been, their untapped potential, the dreams they once had but abandoned when life got too hard or too uncomfortable. For some, this is painful to watch. They see you unapologetically living the life they talked about but never acted on. They hear their own forgotten ambitions in your every word and see the future they gave up on in the choices you make. It's a constant reminder of their own lack of commitment, their own failures to push through when things got tough. They might project their resentment onto you, discredit your achievements, or try to diminish your success, because deep down it makes them face their own regrets. The worst part? They can't deny it. They can't ignore the fact that your courage and determination expose their complacency. You force them to confront the uncomfortable truth that they're not where they thought they'd be. Your very existence is a challenge to the excuses they've made, the fears they've let hold them back, and the dreams they let slip away. But this isn't your fault. You didn't ask to be the mirror to their unfulfilled potential. You're simply living your truth, and that truth, to them, feels like an indictment. You are everything they could have been but didn't have the courage to become. And that stings more than they're willing to admit. Number 11. You trigger their shadows without trying. Simply by being yourself, you trigger the shadows in others. It's not something you actively try to do, it's just a natural consequence of your authenticity. When you live unapologetically, with a rawness and realness that most people hide from, it forces those around you to face the parts of themselves they'd rather keep buried. Your confidence, your clarity, your refusal to wear a mask makes their insecurities surface, often without warning. For some, this is an uncomfortable confrontation with their own flaws. Your unfiltered presence shines a light on the things they haven't dealt with, the traumas, the regrets, the self-doubt that they've spent years suppressing. Your authenticity forces them to face the shadowy corners of their own soul, the parts they'd hoped no one would ever see. You don't need to say a word for this to happen. Just existing in your truth makes others question theirs. It stirs their unhealed wounds, and for many, that's a terrifying experience. They don't know what to do with the discomfort you bring, so they might react by distancing themselves, getting defensive, or even trying to tear you down. But deep down, you've triggered something they can't ignore. This isn't your burden to carry, though. You're not responsible for their healing. You're not out to make anyone uncomfortable or force them to confront their darkness. But in your refusal to hide or shrink, you provide the catalyst for others to face what they've been avoiding. And whether they embrace it or resist it, your authenticity moves them in ways they can't escape. Numbers 12. Your silence speaks louder than their words. Your silence is not emptiness. It's a powerful force that speaks volumes without ever uttering a word. Where others feel the need to fill every moment with noise or excessive chatter, you stand firm in your quiet. And that quietness carries a weight that makes people uneasy, because it forces them to confront themselves in ways they're not prepared for. When you remain silent, they feel the tension in the air, the unspoken challenge that your calm presence imposes. It's not an absence. It's a reminder that not everything needs to be said to be understood. And that's what unsettles them. People are used to over-explaining, filling gaps with words to ease their discomfort or prove their worth. But you don't need to do that. Your silence alone carries a truth that leaves no room for pretense. For some, this becomes an overwhelming mirror to their own insecurities. They feel the need to fill the silence, to explain themselves, to offer justification for their actions, because your stillness makes them question everything they've been saying or doing. They can't hide behind their words when you're not playing the game. Your presence exposes the fragility of their own self-assurance, and they panic, trying to fill that void with whatever they can, often revealing more about themselves than they intend. You don't need to shout, overshare, or perform. Your silence does all the talking for you. It carries the weight of confidence, self-assurance, and a deep understanding that words often dilute the truth. And that kind of quiet power is impossible to ignore. Number 13. You reflect their inauthenticity. Without saying a word, You have the power to make people uncomfortable, not because you're doing anything intentionally, but simply by being your true self. Your authenticity is like a mirror that reflects the inauthenticity in others, and that's what makes them so uneasy. When they're around you, they can't hide behind their masks anymore. The lies they tell themselves about who they are and what they believe begin to unravel in the face of your realness. You don't need to expose them with your words. They do it to themselves. This discomfort stems from a deep, unspoken truth. You force them to confront the version of themselves they've been hiding. They've spent years carefully constructing an image of who they think they should be, based on societal expectations, external validation, or the need to fit in. But you don't need to play that game. You show up as yourself, unapologetically, and it forces others to examine the masks they've built around their own insecurities and fears. The more genuine you are, the more fake they feel, and that's a reflection they can't ignore. They might try to dismiss you or even resent you for it, but deep down, they know it's true. Your presence calls out their own lack of authenticity, and that stings. It's easier to pretend that everything's fine to go along with the crowd than to face the discomfort of seeing your own lies exposed. But you don't need to say a word. Your mere existence is a challenge to the way they've been living their lives. And for some, that challenge is too much to handle, because it makes them confront everything they've been hiding from themselves. Listen, chosen ones. As I wrap up, chosen ones, your presence is too real for them because you don't conform to the lies they've been taught to believe. You live with a raw authenticity that exposes the cracks in their carefully constructed worlds, and that's something they can't handle. You are the reminder they never wanted to face. The truth that there's more to life than following the rules and settling for mediocrity. You don't need their approval, their validation, or their empty promises. You walk in your truth, and that alone challenges everything they've accepted as normal. Your success, your resilience, your unwavering belief in yourself forces them to question their own choices, their own compromises, and their own fears. You make them uncomfortable, not because you're trying to, but because your authenticity reveals how far they've strayed from their own potential. They can't dismiss you, and they can't silence you, because your energy disrupts everything they've been taught to believe is safe. They're forced to either rise to the occasion or remain stuck in their comfort zones. You are not here to fit into their boxes. You're here to show them that living authentically is the only way to truly thrive. Chosen ones, you carry the power to challenge their false realities. You don't need to prove it to anyone. Your presence alone is the proof that there's a different way, a better way, and that's why it's too real for them to handle. Keep shining, because the world needs your truth now more than ever. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye for now, and stay blessed.